Hi, David.
Hi.
That was a great presentation. I love your suit. May I take a few pictures of your suit? Yeah.
My customized suit,
Yeah, did you do this for yourself? Yeah, you're an artist as well, aren't you? And you are a digital prophet. Come on. I knew about digital evangelists, but what is a digital prophet?
Oh, look, it's, my job is to look at digital trends and distill them down. So call me what you like, man. But the idea is to look at the trends, distill them down for the industry, for brands, for clients, for companies, for the industry itself.
And you work for AOL?
I do, yeah.
But people probably don't always know what AOL is about nowadays. Is it Huffington Post and stuff like that?
Exactly. You're absolutely right. So, they don't necessarily have to know about the core brand of AOL. Yeah. They know of our services and some of the brands they work with. HuffPost, Engadget, TechCrunch, Makers.com. There's a bunch of sites that we definitely own that people call love brands. I mean, if you think about our industry, our job is to bring people to brands and brands to people. Because two sides of AOL is, we have our own brands that have their own consumer constituency, but AOL Inc. is an organisation that clusters together all brands that actually deliver these ad solutions. So, so that's brands to people, people to brands.
You delivered an amazing pitch this morning. Thanks. And very, very inspirational. It's going to be hard to put it into a 6-second video, as you advised. But we're going to dwell on something you said. You said technology changes our behaviour, it does not change our needs. Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Well, look, if you think about it, the technology, you're holding up this technology that's changed your behaviour. In fact, I saw a photography piece done recently, an artist who'd actually taken out the devices to see how people's behaviours have changed. And it's really amazing, man. We've had these touchscreen devices for less than about 10 years now. And you think about it, look how amazing our behaviours have changed. Walking down the street, the etiquette. I was thinking about it yesterday. I didn't put it in my presentation today, but I have all these photos that I just take sort of randomly where people aren't noticing. Politely, so not rude, where I'm just taking photographs of people that are completely not interacting anymore. And they're missing potentially that connection because they think they're connecting elsewhere. And not only do we have a generation of people that are head down, we're going to end up with some sort of syndrome, I'm sure, because I see these people doing this all the time. Yeah. They're either doing this, thumbing, or they're doing this with fingering, which I think is hilarious, by the way, just the nature of how people interact with screens. But almost that disconnection, that's changing the behaviour of what we're doing. Now, does it change our need? No, we still need a need to connect. So the younger generation are actually connecting more at things like sporting events because their parents aren't giving them the permission to hang out with teenagers in their own bedrooms anymore. So they still want to have this community, they're just doing it more digitally and at physical events like sporting because they still have a need to connect. They're just doing it differently now, they're doing it digitally. You
mentioned something that really struck my mind as well. You said the current generation has more to do with their grandparents' generation than they have with their parents. How can you explain that?
Yeah, there's a couple of things there, right? One is the values that they have. Definitely still in tune with more of a grandparents' generation. If you think about the generation I grew up with, which was greed is good, it's less about that. This particular generation understand consciousness. They understand about things like organic and eco, and they understand that it's not just about more is more. It's access over ownership. It's about more thoughtful purchasing. It's not, we see a lot of things about people wanting to buy. Younger generation just want to buy a lot of, consumed products, but their siblings, their brothers and sisters, the younger ones, and definitely growing up with a different type of consciousness. So it's sort of a more, almost like an old-fashioned consciousness. In fact, I've seen some behaviours recently of kids that are even putting devices down, and they're questioning things like, well, why do you need that device right now? Why don't we just read a book? They're questioning why people have multiple cars, and they're questioning the type of cars that they have. So there's almost like an old-fashioned consciousness that the generation that are the less narcissistic are coming through with, and I think that sort of gives us hope about where it's headed.
So that means things for brands as well, that they have to be closer to these people, maybe truer than they are at the moment. Yeah,
and less about ads and more about authenticity now. It's a word that gets thrown around a lot, but it's just about how do you become useful, and how do you become something that understands what it means to be in the world of real time. If you think about it, when you think about the traditional model of what the industry we're in, it's all about RFPs. But RFP, if you think in the world of RFP, by the time you execute on that, you're living in time, back in time. So if you're able to think about your brand in the real time, which is what do we do now to react, what are the things that we need to measure against reaction, maybe it's sentiment versus click-through, maybe there's some other values that you need to understand as a dynamic, as an organisation when you're actually marketing to people. And there are going to be some things you need, but you definitely need an experiment budget. You need to make sure that you understand how you're going to listen and return that. and how you measure that. I would argue sentiment is one of those things.
Sentiment is quite an issue actually in terms of brand monitoring, because it's not easy. It's not easy to understand.
And it varies so dramatically when you think about positives versus negative and reach versus passion. I mean, there's a number of different ways you need to look at it. So I think that's one of the dynamics of beautiful data, right? So if you've got data, you know, one of the things I said was look to the signals, not the noise. There's so much data to be able to collect. Yeah. I think if you look at the things and say, these are the things that for our brand equal passion or equal reach or equal, you know, brand over time, sales overnight, if that's, you know, your positioning, that's cool too. But what are the things you're measuring against that? Because you can't measure all data equally. Yeah. You know, it has to be, I think it has to be balanced based on what it is the brands are trying to market. So I don't even think that a brand A can compare itself to brand B. It can do in terms of volume, but probably not in terms of the way that they measure what they're actually doing in their marketing activity.
Loads of challenge for the marketing industry. In
oh my goodness, years, absolutely. How exciting though.
Very exciting, yeah. Okay, one for the road. You mentioned something about Internet of Things, which I really liked. You said, it's not about the Internet of Things, it's about the Internet of everything. Yeah. And then people actually get it wrong. So can you expatiate on that?
Yeah, if you think about the Internet of everything is everything that we've now trying to buy and some sort of connected. Just look at the connected home category. You know, there's thousands of products that are trying to make sure that it buys for attention in terms of the connected home. The challenge with that is that how the things in the connected home going to be connected. So what is the actual, you know, transparent interface that's going to connect all those things together to make it feel like it's something that makes sense? And so it's less about the Internet of Things, it's the Internet of everything that needs to be connected somehow to make it feel like, hey man, I've got a controller now, how do I connect all these things together to make them feel like it all is all part of my own ecosystem? So that's part of it. The other thing is, you know, everything. I have business cards that have RFID chip in it. So that's a paper product, has an RFID chip, it's just my calling card. So there's everything that I see that we now have access to somehow is trying to make us connect to something.
Sure.
And whether that's active connection or passive connection, I still think that's really interesting.
So the imagination is the limit, really. You showed us some amazing things.
Absolutely. Imagination is absolutely experimentation to make sure that, you know, if you know, there's this quote I have by Katharine Hepburn, which is, if you obey all the rules, you miss all the fun. That's the reality, which is what are the things that become super contagious that create that happenstance to say, wow, I didn't think my brand had the ability to do this, but how incredible is it? And it becomes contagious, and if that's something that's important to you, then I think you have access to that today. It's pretty exciting, man.
It's pretty exciting. Thank you very much, David.
Thanks for having me, brother. How noisy is that?